Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon to everyone from around the world tuning in for another episode of Decrypted, the second of 2026. We're going to be hitting on some thumbs down. Why thumbs down?
Oh, it's I just pressed the wrong button.
Sounds like I don't want to be here anymore.
Subconscious me is trying to
Stan wants to go back to coding. But let's actually kick it off with Stan. Stan, how you doing, man? Let's look sad. You sad?
It's interesting. I've been talking to AI for like a week. So I didn't really talk to people. It's nice to be with you guys. You have more humor.
We try. We do try.
Funny AI. We're going to do a really quick sidebar. You know, people love those. Sometimes maybe not. But I was at a dinner last week, and there's a guy, entrepreneur, and he's like, "Yeah, one of my friends started this AI company, and people just talk to AI, but it's like AI girlfriends is really the business model, and boyfriends." And I was like, "Really?" And he's like, "Yeah." He goes, "But you'll never hear about it because they made $400 million cash last year."
Jesus.
And there's just so many people that are just paying. And he showed me the website. I was like, "Jeez." So, Stan, you're talking to AI because you're writing a bunch of sophisticated code. These other people might be having more fun than you.
It's interesting that, like people want the girlfriend. What about like AI mother-in-law? No one wants like AI. It's not a, like business, right?
It'd be a funny website to launch. Just there might be a market segment that really wants that.
I'm now just thinking of like a little Twitter bot where people can just at AI mother, and they just start screaming at the guy in the original post. Oh god. But Jack, happy Wednesday. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good. I gotta say, like everyone knows, this is my favorite time of the week. We get to talk. We get to, discuss interesting, deep topics. It's unscripted, so who knows where it's gonna go. That's probably why it's so fun. So yeah, just happy to be here. And we got a little, things are going well in the macro. Hopefully, we keep that momentum going. Hey, we're just focusing on the task at hand, working hard every day, and having fun.
Hell yeah. But it's a good Wednesday. And lots of things have been coming in across the board, from the markets to new innovations. I'm not sure if you guys saw the interesting tweet from Solana calling out Starknet. That was interesting.
I didn't see
what did they say? They said Starknet has 8 daily active users, 10 daily transactions, and still somehow has a 1 billion market cap and a 50 billion LMFAO.
You write that from the main corporate?
Yeah, from the Solana account. Dude, I was crying. Wait, let me share it because I thought it was genuinely hilarious. Share. There we go.
Isn't it, Stan? Isn't it kind of funny how when we got started, people were just like, "You guys are idiots. You're not doing ZK rollups, and you're not doing." And Stan knows this stuff like the back of his hand. He's like, "Guys, how are you going to get around these costs and all these things? Like, you won't even get anything to work for like 5 years." And he was right about all of it. and hey, it's nice. Starknet and some other guys have built good products and they've got stuff working now, but it's still like, it's really failing to capture users compared to, Solana and other chains like SKL, other chains that have like low friction, super low cost.
Yeah, I mean, I just thought what you said. There's nothing bad about the guys are cool, but when there's this notion, people say something is a solution in the search of a problem. And so that's very typical for startups. You have some cool mathematics, you are trying to use it somewhere. I remember I was teaching and judging some hackathons, and always like computer science like students come up with this like weird games no one else plays except them, like the games when you have formulas and you have like to like do some mathematics to like play the game. So I think like ZK rollups is like this, it's a cool thing. It's like, but it's mostly a solution in search of a problem. When ChatGPT got released, that Paul Graham, he tweeted that ChatGPT is the direct opposite of solution in a search of a problem. It's very useful, right? You can pretty much like solves any problem. So ChatGPT is like, and ZK, they're like on different sides of the spectrum. ZK is not so much useful except privacy, right? Except like Monero and things. And ChatGPT is very useful.
Well, Stan, don't forget the great example that if you go to a bar and you just really don't want the bouncer to know your age when you show your ID, but you want to validate you're 21, I mean, come on, let's not forget that one. I'm joking. That's like the one example people always use for ZK. I'm like, who gives a shit if the bouncer knows how old you are? You know? But I mean, it's like, obviously there's things that like in the medical field or legal field that like you want to validate something happen is true without disclosing, private information but like, showing your ID to somebody to show your age that you're old enough, like, it doesn't like, that's like a nice to have at best.
And the mathematics, the mathematics is cool. I mean, ZK mathematics is great, interesting, but not all mathematics is useful. Like, Greek philosophers, they worship numbers, like numbers were their gods. So numbers are really cool. Some numbers are prime. You cannot like divide them. Some are not prime. So there's so many cool things about numbers that Greeks kind of played with, but they're not really useful, and they're not still useful by even today. So ZK maybe at some point I guess used to be useful, but at the moment there is a little bit of a niche. And so when people like do ZK, I think investors invest in ZK because most of the investors have this kind of a spread type of investing. They just don't know much about the thing. They just like hedge their bets. What happens if this thing takes off? And the ZK guys, I think the problem with them was that they didn't really provide like a product market fit. And then like Polygon, for instance, Polygon dropped ZK, right? They were actually the leader in ZK. They introduced the first ZK virtual machine. They dropped it. And now I think Sandeep actually went exactly the right way. He is doing what people need. They acquired like this network of Bitcoin ATMs in the US. They acquired another company. So you see, like, people that used to be like ZK now are a little bit not like so much.
Yeah, but and I think one of the reasons I brought that up is that there was it's unbelievable the groupthink that can happen in this space. And I remember I was talking to a guy once, and he was like a Harvard professor, but then he was doing a gaming startup, and he's like, listen, we'll work with you now, but I just got to say, it's just very clear. Everything's going to ZK. Everything's going to be on ZK. It's like you walk into the casino, you have the chips, then you cash it up for your money later. And it's just easy. It's totally secure. It's based off all the security. And I was just like, wow, this guy is like, if he were right, anyways, he wasn't right. Look at all the things that exist. Look, everything happening on Solana and Scale and all these other chains that frankly, but there's such confidence people have in this space. And I hope they're learning. I hope the people are learning that like, maybe you need to be open to other ideas.
That's actually very interesting because it's very specific to crypto. Like if you look at AI, there's nothing like this, right? AI people are very, very down to earth, like just this story with transformers, right? Like they had this RNNs, recurrent neural networks, which are really cool. And the founder of AI got Nobel Prize for this RNNs. And they dropped all of these cool networks for transformers, which are basically very simple, just because they're more efficient. So in the AI space, and usually in startup space, people don't really care about, I don't know even how you call it. How you call when a snub, I don't know, when someone like thinks the person is scientific and starts like praising you. How, I mean, it's very specific to crypto, I think.
Yeah, yeah. And I think my theory on that has always been, so in crypto, things took so long to, one, build, two, deploy, and then three, like, see if they're going to get traction. But the day they go live, for day one, they're being traded. So what happens is, because of this length of time, especially during 2018 through like 2021, there's like this 3-year period where it was like this competition. And Stan and I were in all these academic research chats with all the crypto people, where it was like the intellectual Olympics every day. Everyone was like, this thing's better than that thing. And everyone was just making predictions, And who were the smartest people? The people that could argue the best and knew the most about the tech. And then the thing is, like, you go back, I wish we could like keep them on record and go back and say, hey, you were totally wrong about that. But the thing is, narratives ruled. It was like, and the narratives were kind of sorted by these people kind of duking it out in these chat rooms behind the scenes. Whereas in reality, like in normal, like in AI, it's like, oh, okay, you think that, I think this, we'll find out the next 2 or 3 months who's right. And when you have like 2 or 3 years to find out who's right, all there is to do is argue and try to like beat people down. And that, hopefully that ends.
I think it's ended, Jack. I think, if you look what now, I mean, it's ended in a sense that the market is down. Everyone is like surviving the Darwinian kind of survival, which is kind of bad. People not happy not to have money, right? But on the other hand, there is so much good in the market because this thinking is totally gone. The VCs got burned so much. Some of the like greatest names that burned so much. I think the thinking is totally gone. I mean, think about I eigenlayer, for instance. I've never understood the idea. The idea seemed to be totally like crazy for me, because you want to have economic model for your network, and then instead of staking your own tokens, you stake Ethereum, which is kind of cool for Ethereum, but how can you derive value for your tokens? So for me personally, the idea was like, the moment I heard it, it was dead on arrival. But then the way I heard it was that someone told me, oh, there was this conference, and at the conference, everyone was talking about restaking. It is a new narrative. It's a new trend. And everyone, I mean, went into restaking, which to my thinking is just, I don't know how cool the idea is. I don't think it's cool. But people went into the restaking. Now no one is doing restaking. No one is restaking. There's nothing to restake. It's all dead. Right? There's nothing. Everyone forgot about restaking.
And like, I think they realize that. And I think it's interesting. They're switched. They changed the company name. They're like trying to do new stuff. They still have restaking, obviously, but the point is they weren't absolutely right. They didn't have a crystal ball of maybe they had a crystal ball of what people who were speculating wanted in the short term, but they didn't have a crystal ball of what developers wanted, what businesses wanted to get distribution and traction.
So let me talk directly to Eigenlayer guys. Maybe someone can hear this and pass to Eigenlayer guys. Eigenlayer guys, how do you think this can work if you are restaking in your network a token from another network? How are you going to have like a profitable network then? Because you're paying essentially to the owners of the other network.
Well, they have it. So basically, the interesting thing about Eigenlayer is that it's architecturally similar to Scale, like in the sense that like there's staking contracts on the ETH mainnet. That's where these restaking, they have, just like we have Scale being staked, but what it's doing is collateralizing a different blockchain network.
Right.
But what they have is like zero opinionation. They just have these containers, and you could launch a Scale chain. You could launch just a storage, whatever. But their economic model is meant to be, you're supposed to pay for everything. It's only it's like let's say we had all the staking in ETH for Scale, but then Scale is only used to pay. Yeah, I mean, so I think that was the goal. But to your point, the value of staking is very high. If an asset's staked, it captures economic value. If it's
just
a lot of value capture.
Like if let's say tomorrow the United States of America switches from dollar to Chinese yuan, will the economy of the US survive? It seems to be like economic like kamikaze. right?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's like growth versus value capture, and it's like, hey, we can grow faster because there's all these like market share we can like capitalize on. The problem is that Ethereum didn't like it because they're like, hey, hold on, if every single ETH is then making money elsewhere, it's almost like, let's say you rent an apartment and you put a deposit down, and then you take, then you go like get a second apartment using the deposit from the first apartment on the second one. You only have one deposit, but it's on two apartments. You're not really collateralizing against damage on two places. You're only doing it on one. And so you get this like imbalance of like, counterfactual collateral. And so Ethereum's like, hey, hold on. Well, if everything goes bad over there, you're going to screw us up. And so it's like weird. It was
this argument I understand. Actually, I understand this argument that basically you want growth and you're piggybacking on like a huge token, and essentially what you gain is kind of marketing and like community. I understand this. So I don't want to say that it's totally. I mean, there is something about the idea. But the point is that my point is that when someone told me about this the first time, they didn't explain any of that. They just told me that it's a narrative. And guys, I've never heard the explanation you've given. I think it's a good explanation, but they were not giving it.
Yeah. Like, it's funny, in the ETH community, there were like these 3-month narrative arcs that one narrative just was so strong. Like I think Celestia for a long time. And I mean, to be honest, like I really, I know their team, their founder, they're, nice, really nice people. Some of them, not all of them. Like, I can't even tell you what the hell they do, but that was like for 3 months, it was like the thing. And then it was like, and these people during the period of time, I wish I could be that confident about anything as they are confident that this thing is the only way to do it.
Isn't like Celestia? There was a guy that went to jail for like several years before he founded Celestia. I think there was a guy who was like a hacker, like, and then they put them into jail, which is, I don't know, maybe it was like a good time to think. I don't know, like what was, I think there was like some hacking computer security thing the guy did. Maybe it was like cool guy. I'm not saying that if someone puts someone in jail, it's bad. Maybe, it's an interesting person, but the guy went to jail and then got out, and then they started Celestia.
I think he got out. Then I think he sold a company to Facebook. He got acquired.
Yeah. So maybe Facebook guy. Oh, the guy's out of jail. We need companies. How does it work? Like Mark Zuckerberg. Yeah. Let's.
Anyways, all right. We're digressing here. Let's. I think that was a good vent session. I think a lot of people listening are probably like, "Oh yeah, I remember that phase."
Mark, maybe he like listed, emailed with Mark Zuckerberg. There's nothing to do in jail. Maybe he build a startup. I don't know. In jail.
One interesting thing, like if you think about the Starknet and Solana thing, kind of circling back. There's no such thing as bad exposure. Like, guess what? We're talking about Starknet. When have we ever talked about Starknet? And then, by the way, Stan and I know some of their founders are really nice, super smart people.
The founder of Starknet, I think, like the mathematician, it's like one of the greatest mathematicians of our time. Eli, I think he deserves probably like the Turing Prize. He's one of the largest, and I'm not saying anything like this. I'm just stating the fact that, if someone like the guy, for instance, the crazy Russian guy, he solved the Poincaré problem, but the Poincaré problem is purely like mathematical. There's no application. So what I'm saying, Eli is just one of the greatest mathematicians, but I'm just like saying.
It doesn't translate to user adoption.
Exactly.
Yeah. But like, it's interesting how, like someone like Solana kind of quit doing that for a while. It's called like punching down. Like, why punch down when you're at the top? Because you basically give somebody else a spotlight, and everyone's like, oh, and so it, again, interesting stuff on crypto Twitter.
But
probably for Starknet because people like us are talking about them.
True that, and
Falcor?
You ruined my my segue because I was about to get there in a really nice way.
Waiting for you to do it.
But you know what was going really, really big on crypto Twitter 2025 going into 2026? Stable coins. There we go, segue. But Jack, you know, obviously stable coins is a massive area within crypto and blockchain, specifically within the likes of X402. Mass adoption from, you know, institutions and banks and things like that. And, you know, the end of 2025, everything was starting to roll up. And I think we all had in our predictions for 2026 for stablecoins to kind of continue growing exponentially. So what's going on in the world of stablecoins, man?
Yeah, so let me kind of give some real high level, because I think if you're listening to this show, if you're listening to Decrypted, it's the 15th episode, by the way. I've done a lot of these now. You probably know what a stable coin is. So I'm going to go further into stable coins. So one, the growth over the last year was insane. All right. We had total market cap grew by 54%. All right. Which we'll get into this later, but that's a little bit interesting because when crypto prices go down, stablecoin usually captures more value because people settle back into stablecoins. However, when we get into this, you're going to see that most of that growth came in terms of like volume and like value transferred as opposed to, you know, trading settlement. Okay. So the total transfer volume, it was 33 trillion last year. $33 trillion was sent over the wires, i.e. on chain last year. And that's up 72% in 1 year. That's massive. Okay. Like it's surpassed Visa in terms of transfer volume. The monthly active addresses was 85 million at its peak. Now, I don't know. I'm not sure if that, what I do know is Tether has roughly about 18.5 million monthly active addresses a month, USDT. USDC has about 3.2 million. And then there's some other players now. Athena is like really hardly any active addresses, like 150,000, but each active address has like a ton of money. It has like $50,000 worth on average compared to like a couple hundreds for, you know, USDT. Sky Dollar, which is the new DAI rebranded, has about 450,000 active addresses. But then the newest player is PayPal. PayPal has their own stablecoin that in the last quarter really came on, and it already has a $3.8 billion market cap and 4 million active addresses. And each, I think the average address dollar value is around like a couple $100 compared to Athena is 50,000. So it's just like, so what we're seeing that's interesting is like this really interesting, this segmentation that's happening. One, just lots of growth, but two, there's not like a winner of stable coins because there's going to be lots of use cases, lots of winners. So if you think about it, you think about like international settlement. Like if we go to Ukraine and we see, what are those people using? They're all using USDT and they're going to like Tron and they're like getting settlement that way compared to in the US, big businesses and financial entities all use USDC. So, you know, and one player isn't going to win everything, I don't think. And then you see things like PayPal where they're like, hey, great. I'm not trying to get like a big bank to use me to settle international, like cross-border settlement. I want normal users who just want to buy a cup of coffee to start paying in a stable coin. Okay. So anyways, that's a little framing. We can get into more data later, but what do you guys think? Thoughts on stablecoin growth?
Another thing to add, really interesting, I think, I mean, I can judge by myself. One of the reasons I don't really hold much stable coins because I'm paranoid in a sense that I'm always scared that the bank goes down, the stable coin issue goes down like Circle. So after all, Circle is a company, and me being very kind of a paranoid guy, I always think, okay, what happens if they screw, right? But there's this development which is really interesting. The state of Wyoming is issuing its own stable coin. And this is for me like the paranoid segment of the consumers. This is the stable coin I want to use for all of my money, literally, because I understand if it's the government, there's no way it's gonna fail, right? Companies fail because whatever, people take money and run away. But governments don't do this, right? So if there's ever the state of Wyoming coin, I will definitely start using more than that. I will basically quit all of the banks because, Jack, you remember the story we had with Silicon Valley Bank.
Yeah.
We almost lost all of our money for,
and it triggered USDC to fall off peg down to 92% of, or dropped 8% down to 0.92 or
because
maybe 0.9 at some point.
So then basically, if you have a government issued, even a state government, if the state of Wyoming issues the stable coin, it is just way better to hold compared, because it's like basically insured for no FDIC limit. You will never lose it. While with FDIC, you have a small business, and the small business has more than $250,000, and then we at Scale, we almost got totally grilled. So I think it's a huge development. I think if these things happen, banks are gonna die. And so banks are getting really scared, and there's a law now about stable coins. And the state of Wyoming said, which is also really funny, they said, the federal law doesn't apply to states. It's in the Constitution. So even if the federal law says that stable coins don't pay interest, the state of Wyoming basically says, screw you guys. Where the state, we don't really care about your laws. And they start paying interest, meaning that, when you have a stable coin, you always hold it in US treasuries and make 3% or whatever. So if you're allowed to pay interest, you'll be paying 1% back and keeping 2% for yourself, but still it's better than nothing. And so pretty much everyone, if the state of Wyoming issues the stable coin, it can be literally the end of the world finance, because it is so much better than anything the humankind ever seen. There's no risk. It pays, some interest. You don't have any KYC ML.
So this, by the way, this absolutely proves my point around market segmentation, that there won't be one winner, because Stan's best stablecoin is the opposite of some other who they don't want the government to know anything about them. They don't want the government to seize their assets. They don't, and it's USDC. USDC is kind of in the middle where they're hey, we have a ton of, it's great return, all these things that's with it. It works even, but guess what? If you hold USDC, your wallet can be frozen at any time by one simple request to Circle from any government entity. And for people like Stan and I and Falco are we don't care, because guess what? We keep money in banks. I'm not trying to do anything weird with my money. But other people, and so if you're in that camp, then the Wyoming, a government-backed stablecoin is better, because you don't really care about this anarchy component of financial independence, being bankless. If you do, then you probably want to have Tether, right? But then Tether has kind of very unclear collateralization happening, at least to my knowledge. Apparently they've gotten a lot better, but I don't know if there's the same level of transparency. And then Athena is not even, they fell off peg for a while. They're not even backed. They're backed by a delta neutral trading strategy that holds crypto assets. A market maker holds a position, compared to having just USDC has money in banks. Every USDC is backed somewhere by a physical or a digital, an actual US dollar.
Yeah. Is it? Is it?
Yeah, no, I think they're under a ton of regulation.
Because I've seen Circle minting billions of dollars all the time.
They have this counterfactual component that happens in a bank, and that's why they fell off peg, because they use 9 or 10 different banks to hedge. And then Silicon Valley Bank went down, which was I think 8% of their collateralization. And then when that happened, the market was really efficient. The market dropped exactly to the point of value that they lost. I think it dropped 92%. I probably might be off a little bit, and then it held there, and then it went back to $1, and a ton of people who are really brave went and bought at 92, and they made some money. But yeah, so that's how they do it. Whereas USDT, to my knowledge, like holds Bitcoin and all sorts of things, and cash and banks and probably different currencies. They hold like a whole mixture of things, and it's less public about where it is.
Because if I'm not mistaken, banks themselves are allowed to. Is it they're allowed to? They only have to have 20% of their quote unquote how much money people have put into the bank actually as fresh cash. And I'm surprised that that's not similar for the likes of, Circle and these other companies where, they don't actually have the full amount that they actually.
Ben, it's basically, they're parasites, because all they do is they basically create the system that you have to put money into them. And then what they do, they buying like short-term US treasuries. And it's like basically it's US government debt, which is like you buy the treasury and the treasury gives you money back in 3 months. So if something is around on the bank, they just sell the short-term treasuries. They will be able to sell it easily. But when they're greedy, what happened at Silicon Valley Bank, instead of buying like short-term treasuries, they were buying long-term treasuries where the money comes back like 2 years later, after 5 years, because the yield was higher. So the bank always like buys the treasuries, keeps the yield, and gives nothing back to the customers. That's how they work usually. So basically, they bought these long-term treasuries. And then when the people came for money, because the treasuries are long term, you can't really sell it.
And didn't they do a ton of like venture debt loans to people too? And so things that are not very like, so companies, they just gave all these tech companies these loans that they couldn't call on. They got great returns, but they were illiquid effectively.
And then they don't care about loans, because what happens with loans is also weird. Like they give people loans and then they essentially tokenize them. There's like tokenization before tokens, like it's called securitization, whatever. And they sell them to like huge corporations. So you go to a bank, come to a bank. The only thing the bank does, it just talks to you, and then they issue the loan, and then it was your default on the loan. They don't really care because they sell the loan immediately as a token. So they have they had this business model, either mortgages or like this treasuries. And then they just take lots of money, but then they provide terrible service, constantly like lock you out, like constantly KYC email you, just make your life terrible, basically. I don't know. I mean, from my perspective, they're totally useless. For me, I think if there's the only thing about stable coins is that I, being a paranoid, I think, I'm like, USDC, how do I know it doesn't go down? Maybe it doesn't go down, but still a company, right? So I think they're doing bad job. I think Circle is doing bad job explaining to people that they won't go down, because many people are scared moving lots of money into stable coins, because they still think, okay, it's a corporation, what's going on inside? Maybe there is anything inside bad happening. Like they don't explain people the system. And Tether is actually worse. But there's basically they're in Asia. In Asia, it's better to have Tether compared to like be like, with totalitarian government, inside of there's no money essentially. Like that's why they're using Tether, because it's economic freedom for them.
Yep. Yeah. So hey, let's I agree. I think the first like government that has real government backing on the stable coin is going to capture a ton of market share, especially for store of value. It may not be utilized as much to like buy cups of coffee or whatever, but if you just want to store value or move value, it's pretty damn safe, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about agents, because the cool thing about stable coins, and people are like, sometimes we do this show and people are like, how come you're not talking about scale all the time? And why are you talking about this other stuff? Like
the only moment for us to relax. This show is not work.
Yeah, we're just talking. We're having fun.
Having fun.
But what I'd say is stable coins, like, what are we doing? We're moving in this whole agent world. We're focusing on supporting agents at scale because it's such a booming market. And agents too, like, are going to be used by games and all these other categories we already work with. So we're basically doubling down on those two by providing the service they're going to need. But the cool thing about agentic commerce is that like a massive amount of that is just going to all use stable coins. Okay. And, and other things if you're doing trading, but so much of commerce and buying and selling will just happen through USDC, USDT, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So Stan, what do you, and by the way, a couple metrics a year ago, basis transaction volume, 0% came from agents, at least zero, effectively zero. There's probably something happening and no one knew about it. In Q4 of last year, 18% of all USDC transactions on Base were initiated by a non-human wallet, an agent, which means that's like real adoption. Now, hey, what are those use cases? I think there's agent people that are effectively doing what bots do in games. They're having their agents send money back and forth to show they have market share, right? There's probably some of that happening, but I think there's a lot of real stuff that's like starting and it's exciting. Anyway, so what do you guys think about agents and stable coins?
I think for agents to work, you need stable coins, right? Because you can't be having, unless you complicate it to a point, a very, very extreme point where you do, price fluctuations with the actual value of the token. You're going to be requiring more APIs that are built into your marketplace or into this bot. Stablecoins are going to be the forefront of payments for AI bots and XOR2 and things like that. And it's going to make everything as simple as possible, right? Because $1 is $1, and you're going to go and load up $10 worth of USDC or USDT or pay AUD, and you're going to be able to load your bot up, and he's going to be able to go and do the tasks that you want them to do. And for non-crypto people, that is a very easy thing to understand. If you were to go to them and say, that's why gas fees has always, outside of the cost of gas fees being a pain, understanding that you have to go and buy 0.00013 amount of Ethereum or Solana to do this transaction. And if you're doing something very quickly or on the fly, you don't have that kind of immediate conversion in your mind on how much is this actually going to cost. And with stable coins, that is going to be made significantly easier for if you're doing 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 transactions a day, okay, I want to only spend $50 instead of 0.05 ETH. That's not at all right, or which can fluctuate at the moment. You could do a transaction and at that exact moment, Ethereum just dropped 20%, let's say hypothetically, right? We had a crash, a massive, massive crash, and your transactions have just gone through the roof. But with a stable coin, you're not, fingers crossed, touch wood, you're not going to have that happen.
Stan, what do you think?
Yeah, I think, I've been looking into AI for the last week. You probably guys know that we have this history that the company which was too early, which kind of didn't go well. The company name was Galactic Exchange, and we were trying to essentially do pretty much 10 years ago what people are doing now. And at the time, it's just neural networks didn't work well.
Before I met Stan, this was his thing he was working on.
The funny thing, so I just basically took last week to kind of update my knowledge. And the funny thing is that I thought there was a huge progress in computer science or mathematics. What turns out to be true is that the models that they're used today, they call them transformers, they're actually even simpler than the models that we used 10 years ago, which were called RNNs, recurrent neural networks. So they're simpler. And so this progress, this huge progress, this 10 years, probably 95% of this progress that was made from RNNs to transformers to ChatGPT was not due to mathematics or computer science, just the data. There's a huge amount of data and huge amount of compute. So the problem was pretty much solved by Hammer. hammer, like just huge resources that OpenAI and Google has for training. And so that was really interesting. And then actually, if you
is that, by the way, is that what the large language models portent is that it can learn across such a vast amount of information?
So just the number of parameters. It's called large. It's called large. There's nothing tremendously different between like what was there before. It just got optimized, and just the number of parameters. I think like ChatGPT has probably like 1 trillion parameters. Like, so if you save it to a hard drive, it's like a terabytes of parameters. So you need to have lots of memory, not lots of compute. It's just a big neural network, not as big as the brain, but still big.
We lost Stan potentially.
Yeah, really?
No, Stan's fine.
Okay, that was me. Did we lose me?
But the point
Might be
I was doing this, but I can tell you guys some interesting like thoughts I kind of got in my brain as I was doing it. One really interesting thought is that before computers were invented, people had to print documents on typewriters. So if you look, like, if you find a document which is like from 70s or 60s, it's like one page. You have like a rental agreement or like a house purchase agreement. It's a couple of pages because you had to type it on a typewriter. And before typewriter, you had to write it, and then there was automatic pen. And before like automatic pen, people were like writing with like ink and like feathers, right? Very slowly. So the point is that the documents since that time, since like William Shakespeare time, the documents grew hugely. And so the point I'm making is that now, like if you take a typical corporation or just a consumer, you have a rental agreement, you rent an apartment, and your rental agreement may be like easily like 20 pages, right? They send you a PDF, 20 pages, you review it, and kind of. Now people write documents with ChatGPT and analyze documents with ChatGPT. So what's going to happen is that because of this, the document size will increase again, because it's easier to write, easier to analyze. So you're going to have like rental agreements like 1,000 page. They will be like every tiny thing will be written there, and your agents will fight over tiny things, like in your agreement, over tiny discounts, whatever. So we will actually end up in a universe where we'll have these huge documents that we won't be able to read, and we will have like only your ChatGPT agent will read it, and a dark thought. The entire progress will be just eliminated because yes, now you have AI, but the documents are now 1,000 pages or 10,000 pages. So I'm like, this is kind of interesting. So I said that's actually I'm a little bit like exaggerating, but for sure, because what I did like last week, I just for fun, I took my energy bill and I just ran it through ChatGPT. And it turns out the energy company just added service like a service like €10 a month, and I just hadn't seen the service. I didn't have time. It's like a footnote somewhere, and so I saved €10 just by running it through ChatGPT. And then I took like another thing, and I took my what did I take? I took my TV bill, cable bill, and it turns out that I was subscribed to this sports channel. I don't watch sports, but somehow they subscribe me to sport, and I started doing it, and I went like it was like small charts everywhere, literally.
Yeah.
That is one of the things.
I got back to agents then. Are you getting it, or to stable coins? So basically, like
the point is that the agents documents are gonna go right big, and that's why when people say why there will be lots of agents. Why there will be zillions of agents. I think that's one of the reasons is that the information will grow. And the ChatGPT can only process one single page at a time. So if you want to do things in parallel and process many things, you need to have multiple agents.
Yeah,
you have stable coins.
Basically, they're connected then to all of these financial decisions you're making. They're actually working for you as to protect your assets and your interests, consolidating things down to like, hey, guess instead of looking at a 100-page, bill. They're like, hey, do you realize you just were charged this extra thing? I'm going to not pay the full bill till they fix it. And when I pay it, I'll pay it in a stable coin.
Absolutely. And last thing is that actually one of the other reasons why you need agents is that people say, okay, agents for micropayments. Even if the agent is used for regular payments, banks, they prohibit non-humans or bots from using bank UIs, right? So if an agent, if Bank of America detects that agent is trying to pay like whatever $1,000, they will block the account. And agent can pretend to be a human, but then Bank of America can do something like, ask you to whatever. So one of the reasons for stable coins is that these agents won't be able to pay, not just micropayments, they won't be able to pay at all because banks are incredibly hostile to bots. They just block accounts.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, it's really interesting. That brings up that's like a segue into another topic here that I want to hear your guys' thoughts on. These bots right now, like, why are people blocking them? Well, then Ingenious Act is trying to provide all this clarity, but let's say your agent hallucinated and it bought like an asset, collateralized asset in Iran or some like, OFAC like blacklist country. Who's responsible? Is it the developer? Is it the user who deployed the agent? Is it the platform? Like, let's say it's running on Base or Scale. Like, who's responsible? And essentially, anyways, I want to hear what you guys think about that, because that's where this, like, people are like, oh, well, who's in charge? Like, who's at fault? Am I at fault because I just used ChatGPT and they screwed up? All of a sudden, I'm like, have legal exposure. So, what do you guys think about that? And I can kind of get into, well, what I'll tell you right now, the human deployer is 100% liable for everything their agent does.
Wow.
And what do you guys think about it? It's kind of sad because, like, you don't know, like, normal users don't know what the hell the agent's thinking or doing.
I think, like, in that situation, right, the person that, from my point of view, that's liable is the guy that's actually selling the asset, right? But then again, yeah, I would have to go as the guy that's selling the asset instead of because if you, well, okay, so let's go slightly morbid. If a self-driving car crashes into someone, who's liable? Is it the driver?
Or is it Tesla? I don't know.
Or is it Tesla? Or is it?
It's probably going to. You know what? It'll probably be the driver, and then the driver will probably
sue Tesla. Yeah.
So here's one interesting thing is that what's happening right now, this black box agent market is just dead in terms of like corporate use, and now corporates have to use deterministic guardrails to absolutely ensure the agent doesn't do. So the example, they said, hey, let's say your bot buys sanctioned Iranian oil futures because it misread a ticker symbol or like, hallucinated. Your AI hallucinated is not at all a defense. And so what corporations are doing to protect people, this doesn't work like in virtuals or other, Web3 agent products yet. Like, they're just basically really like limiting what the agent can do. I don't know. What are the implications of that, Stan?
I can interesting thing is just coming back to technology. I think that's actually one of the incorrect, like basically a little bit of a high pass that OpenAI and others went into. Basically, when they saw that the thing is working, they thought that it would become like AGI and like Albert Einstein and whatever. And they made these promises like 3 years from now you'll have like whatever genius AI. Turns out the model has limits, and so what they're doing now, they're pushing the models to the limit. They're trying to generate bigger chunks of data that the model has, and the model hallucinates. And what they should do, they should switch. And then there's this crazy competition in monolithic models, right? Like an engineer from OpenAI, they take the engineer, pay her like $100 million, move the engineer to Facebook, just because they think it will, at some point, they will be geniuses like Albert Einstein's. But I think they figured out that's not true. So they went the wrong path. And because of the wrong path, they had these monolithic models that they invested huge amounts of money, but if you push too much the model starts hallucinating. So they will have to switch because the models don't hallucinate when the task is small. The hallucination happens when they're pushed over. And so the new architecture needs to be not these huge models, like hallucinating models, but splitting work in tasks where you're guaranteed not to hallucinate, like small pieces, and then it's kind of, they have to admit that their investment like is screwed because they went the wrong way, because what they should have done the smaller chunks, and then they should have invested in, if I have many agents working, like how do I split in small chunks and then reassemble work? More like, like many agents working, not just a monolithic super AI genius, but many like reasonably smart guys working together. So I think they made a mistake. And I think it will force them to move to this absolutely different direction, because if you have the small pieces, every time you can check if there's hallucination, and then so it's way better. But I think it's really interesting what you said, Jack, because you see what the problem is, that the legal liability is just huge.
Yeah, I mean, it's a new frontier, and I think that's, it's interesting because who's at fault? And I mean, no one knows. I didn't know that till today. I just thought ChatGPT would be at fault.
No, Jack, I mean, it's very different conceptually, because let's say I write software, I sell you software, and the car crashes, but it's just software. Then maybe I just put some incorrect line, and then I'm guilty. With the neural network is way smarter than me. Yeah. So it's not like the neural network does something bad. You come back to me, put me in jail, but in fact, I will never even know what went wrong, because I don't understand how it works inside. It's like the super duper, thing. So it's incredibly weird, and it's very hard for these companies to avoid this liability, because how they know it won't hallucinate. And I think coming back, they need to switch into doing small pieces. And then at least if a small piece went wrong, you need at least know where it went wrong.
The other thing, this problem gets completely exacerbated when more and more code is written by AI. So right now, like 50% of, I think, Google Gemini code is just written by AI, something like that, something in that range. But what about when it's 98%? Because that's going to happen, right? Where like humans are just kind of watching this stuff. It's going to be really hard to even keep up with all the changes. And like you said, maybe the AI makes a change that then has like a hugely impactful negative, response. Like, then the developer's in jail. Is like, I didn't do it. It was
we discussed it at SKL.
It was my AI girlfriend developer who my girlfriend Anne writes code for me.
Hey, at least it's not the AI mother-in-law that's also getting the code wrong.
By the way, I actually think that's going to be a thing, is that we have all these like AI assistants. You're going to see like these worlds merge, where all of a sudden you have like people have this like flirtatious relationship with their assistant, their AI assistant, because it's more fun.
Well, I mean, it's a great point. Did you see what Anthropic released the other day with Claude? It's like Claude To Do. It's pretty much now your assistant, where it's desktop. It can go through all of your files. It will give you a list of things, that it's going to do. You can say, go and delete every single, or go and reorganize my entire computer into correct folders and things like that. Or, look through all of my files and find me the best, written pieces of content for this topic, and it'll go in, it'll just do it all for you. Like, it's actually kind of crazy.
Yeah, like one example real quick is I was playing in a golf tournament this last summer, and I had with my college football teammates. He doesn't know anything about AI really, and I was like, and we were playing. We like didn't do very well the first day. The second day of the tournament was coming up. I was like, hey, like, have you seen how good AI is for telling you about like teaching about like just golf? Like, it's read every golf book in the world. It knows it's read every blog, and we use the Grok like flirty anime character. So it's funny, we're getting like coaching advice from this like flirtation, but the best coaching advice you could ever get. So it was like a merging of these worlds. We're like, this is cool. So why is that? Why can't that translate to other things? Go ahead, Stan. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think what I want to say, we just had this discussion at scale yesterday. Like, let's say you don't know how to program, you tell, you don't hire any engineers, you tell like ChatGPT to write this huge product, and the product worked perfectly, right? Just perfectly. And you're using this product like for whatever, selling it for 5 years, and then it turns out that there is somewhere this hallucination, and the product starts to crash, or maybe the cars start like killing people, right? Or whatever. Just the point is, at this moment, you didn't hire anyone. No one understands the product. So it's almost like, what do? You just basically hire someone, so you end up paying maybe even more to engineer, because you build a product that using AI and no one understands what's inside. So any hallucination is probably very complex, because otherwise it would find it, right? There's probably like a very subtle, complex hallucination, hard to find. It cannot find it, because if it could find it, it wouldn't be there, right? So it cannot find it. And you cannot find it because you didn't hire anyone. You don't have any engineers. You have this thing. So which brings me to the point. I don't think that it will be like fire everyone, just AI. I think it will be more like keep senior engineers and then basically keep computer scientists. And then, yes, junior people and maybe
AI babysitters who feel like a babysitter, but they're actually an underling, even though
exactly.
Hey, by the way, I just want to say, like, we talk about Bitcoin for a second, because I had not looked since Bitcoin ripped all the way up to almost 98K, 97.7, like down a little bit again, 96.9, but like, wow, like a lot of action, down from 90 or up from 93. Like, I don't know. I think it's a new year. People are getting excited. Look at Bitcoin's market share compared to gold. I don't know. I had someone yesterday say, oh yeah, Bitcoin's ripping, going to hit 100K by the end of the week. And I was like, yeah, you don't know what you're talking about. Well,
yes, they do.
Person, right?
Yeah, can you slide me their details, because if they make calls like that often, I might just got to start listening.
This person works at Scale. So.
Oh, okay, I know who it is. Okay, yep. Oh god, but obviously we're coming up to the hour now, and I think it would be great, for us to quickly just touch on one of the larger governance proposals that we posted about last week, which was
okay, all right, okay, let's do it. I was going to say, let's finish. Like, I wanted to hear your guys' thoughts on this Bitcoin.
Sorry,
real quick. I know people are interested in that. Like, do you guys what are, and then Scale burn? We might go a little long.
Yeah.
I hit both these.
Yeah, go on, Stan. You go first.
I can say this just basically. I don't know at all, because I think for these things, like, I've never understood it, right? I mean, it always happens. It's almost like the world is like one single brain, and like the entire universe gets depressed, like for 6 months, and suddenly nothing changes, and then suddenly and people don't buy it, and then so it's a little this weird. But I think I'm the really bad guy to think about this, because to understand this, you need to understand people. You probably have to like live somewhere like in New York City and go to the bar every day and have like 1,000 friends, because it's some kind of you cannot just predict it, say, oh, it goes up. It's somehow people start changing their view in sync, and there is this kind of an avalanche where they change. And if you like know everyone, you can start like getting a feeling of it. I think you actually can predict it. That's why, actually, by the way, like all of the financial guys live in New York City, in Manhattan, like Wall Street, because you have to be in it to understand like what's. So I'm the bad guy. I don't really, but I think if but there are people I think which know. There's people can, but they probably don't tell anyone.
I just say I think is like a huge value for making short-term predictions. Like, you know, people, well, I just ripped up to 96,855 because we're talking about it. No, just kidding. There's nothing to do with it. Not financial advice.
No financial advice. Wait, where are my buttons?
But like people making longer-term bets, like multi-coins, frankly, done better than any VC firm out there in crypto. And their whole thing is like these guys went to school at NYU. Kyle and Tushar, who are really good friends of Stan and I, and our lead VC from the first big crypto round we did. Anyways, their whole thing is like, hey, we're in Texas. We don't want to be in that group thing because we have to be contrarian. And it actually worked out really well for them. But if you want to trade Bitcoin and like things that are moving every day, I think you're right, Stan. So much of it's sentiment and like, but not just getting like lagging indicators, the leading indicators of sentiment, which you probably get in those inner circles in New York and these big trading hubs.
You look like a guy like George Soros, right? The guy lives in New York and has zillions of friends and friends with presidents. And it's not like these people are like evil mafia that rule things. It's just they're like this neural network, which is really closely tied. And actually, when they decide, like collectively, they're not like they subconsciously decide goes up. So if you are there, and that's why, like, if you want to trade like short term, you don't watch patterns. People that watch patterns, they're just basically gambling. People that really want to trade like medium term, they go and they make connections to people that in the know, and then you kind of start developing a feeling, you know, how you kind of add up all of these different signals, and then you can trade. I believe you can actually do it and make money, but it's not by watching like pattern.
Yeah, like the current sentiment indicator is 81% on community sentiment on CoinMarketCap. I don't know. What's the fear greed index today?
I'm going to go with 72. That's a guess. What is it?
Where do we find this? Where do we find this?
52. Is that it?
Yeah. So like, you know, really wild swings, right? That's a, you know, it's so, I'm so glad my job isn't trading Bitcoin. I would suck at it. It's just like you look at these things and it's like, yeah, you've got to make sense of these things that are not, you know, the price of Bitcoin is what the next person will pay for it, not, you know, like buying Apple, like how many iPhones did they sell? It's just a very, you know, it's an art that, you know, probably the ones that do well are ones that just hold delta neutral strategy and like leverage like, you know, volatility indexes and stuff or hold long-term like MicroStrategy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're number one on there.
Wanted to talk about it, but I think Stan, that's a, you know, astute point. Well, we'll see where I'm curious where the feed group, you know what, they should have a polymarket prediction market on where the feed, crypto feed, fear and greed are going. That'd be interesting, right? Like, will it hit 70? That'd be like, you know, well, if you're a creator of prediction markets, you should throw that one up there. That'd be an interesting.
They actually don't.
Yeah, like really good. Prediction markets are still in their early days. Like they're missing out on a lot of good stuff.
Wow, that's crazy. That's actually mind blowing. Yeah.
Yo, burn. Go for it.
Burn, baby, burn. We announced the other week that there had been a proposal put forward in the forum. Make sure you guys are checking out the forum, forum.skl.network. And with regards to the burning of the token, right? I think we can all agree here that burning is good for the economy of the network, and with how Scale Expand is looking at bringing in fees of SKL, we're looking at burning 50% of that, and we want as many people to give us as much feedback as possible. We know this is something that we need to be doing. And yeah, we've got a vote coming, hopefully either today or tomorrow.
The update, by the way, on the vote, just so people know, there's a graph and snapshot thing that engineers are trying to fix. It has nothing to do with Scale. It's actually just Scale uses snapshot for voting, and someone is trying to get something working that's apparently broken across a ton of projects. So I think as soon as that is working, it'll be up. Otherwise, it would have been up yesterday. But but it's not, frankly, our issue. It's a product that Scale uses to manage voting.
By the way, I want to say really quick that if you vote, our voting does not require you to move money anywhere. So if it shows your vote is actually transferring funds, it means that it's maybe some.
That's a good, brings up another point. I'm going to talk about the burning. I have one interesting thing to talk about, but right now you have to be delegated to vote. I think it'd be interesting to have let non-delegated tokens vote, and maybe like people are worried about like attacks, but that means they have to go buy a bunch of Scale to perform an attack. Maybe there could be some ratio, like if you're delegated, you get more voting power because you're staked for a longer period. You're locked for a longer period of time. But I like that. More people vote. Like anybody who has a token can vote without delegating. What do you guys think?
I actually really like that, specifically kind of like the longer you've had delegated, maybe your bonuses, like you get like a little boost versus maybe someone that is just held instead of it being worth what it should be worth. Let's say 1 SKL, 1 vote, right? Maybe it's worth like 0.75. So then you can mitigate that kind of idea of an attack. But I really like that idea of allow as many people to vote as possible. But the longer you've delegated, then
what do you think?
The more
Stan?
you can.
Totally, that's totally. It just shows. I think like because like the market is down, people are starting to think more creatively. It used to be so much dogmas, like people said, you have to stake and all of this, like purists. But in reality, like you want community engagement. And so if you coming from the point, because people say, I want to financially secure the network, they want this economic stuff. But in reality, I think networks are more people and communities than economic whatever. So if you're coming from a people perspective, it's just if it's a fun community, you should let everyone vote, right?
I'm going to write a forum post, and I want to hear people's thoughts. If you're listening and you have an opinion one way or another, let us know. I think it'd be great. I think you're right, Stan. Getting more people involved is better, and you don't have to necessarily. Before, we're like, if you care about the network, you can vote. You have to care about it enough to be staked for at least 2 months, and maybe that just has passed. Like we need to change, and I'm totally open for that.
It's a terrible thing, and actually, I love Ethereum. Definitely Ethereum it's fantastic. But this thing, I never understood about Ethereum, and I think it's wrong. How do you vote on the Ethereum mainnet? Right? There's no like governance at all.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's really bad. I think that's actually what happened. Actually, that's the bad kind of outcome of 2025. That the community is like many projects just don't care about communities. I think the community.
Yeah, the thing too, like to me, that's always been this wolf in sheep's clothing, where they've said, hey, we like Vitalik and other people say we don't have voting because we don't want people with financial incentives to determine what we do. But really what they're saying is, hey, we want to keep power just within this small set of developers to make all the decisions. And hey, we have improvement proposals and we have this non-financial process. But then you find out that these making these decisions aren't getting paid shit. They don't have any, they're getting ETH from the foundation. And it's like, the idea of voting to me is great. And I think the more federated, the more, democratized it can be, the better. Okay, so let's really quick. I just want to say on the Scale burn, the forum was really great because we had a lot of smart people weighing in who I don't know who these people are, and I just appreciate them. And it was good. We had like some argument. Like there was someone saying, someone was just like, this isn't going to amount to anything. It's only this amount. Then another really smart person said, hey, you're not getting the whole picture of Scale expand. This is going to live all over. And the more it grows, it's burning 50% is right in line with lots of other, burn proposals that are happening right now. It meets market. I forget who it is. Someone else, another big project had the same thing. And, it's just nice to hear people's thoughts, and people had like really logical arguments. And what I want to say is burns that work, like we're starting small intentionally, just Scale on base. We want to prove that this works. And then it'll go into the core scale network. There'll be proposals to make it go all over. And I think it's incredibly positive. What doesn't work for burning is just burning stuff out of thin air just to decrease supply. Never seen any of those work. What works is when you start really like leaning in and like burning iteratively against payments. So Ethereum's done a good job. The advantage the scale economics have over things like Ethereum has no cap supply. There could just be a gazillion ETH out there someday. And so they realize they have to burn just to keep the supply down and try to make it be deflationary. Scale actually is going to have another step down in inflation. It's going to drop 50% next year. Number one. Number two, there's a max cap of 7 billion tokens. So we actually get the best of both worlds. We hit a ceiling of inflation, but we're going to burn against that with fees. So I'm excited. And I just think people need to realize like, hey, this is just the first step in many steps of burning. And we're burning in a way that we've seen, and all the people involved in this proposal, who some work at the core team, many work at validators, many work at developer partners, many are indie devs or app builders. Like a lot of feedback came together. Hey, sometimes things take a while because it's not just, Stan and I saying, we're the founders, this is what we do. We got to get people involved and make it decentralized. And hey, it's coming together. So thanks to everybody who participated.
And I think it's important for everyone to know I had no opinion or sway in this whatsoever. So it'll be good.
Okay. All right, guys. Stan, last thoughts on that?
I was like, today I was like pretty much the entire morning was in the meetings regarding Scale private chain. It's just unbelievable how good the Scale private chain is going to be. Like
privacy chain, yeah.
Privacy chain, right? Yeah, confidential chain, right? Because you will be able to have encrypted data, and it's going to be connected to Base. And Sasha measured performance like yesterday, and he's like, "Wow, we got to like 1.5 thousand transactions per second
with privacy." That's amazing because these things are
really
people know it's really difficult to have speed and privacy.
Yeah, so basically, it is the. I mean, I don't know what to add to this chain. I mean, it's a perfect chain. No one has anything like that at all.
Yeah.
It just no one can process any encrypted data.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what we can add to this. But my point is that like people say sometimes, why don't you do something more about marketing? Why not? You're also great in engineering, but you don't do marketing. Why don't you do more marketing? And then they go and buy like meme coins. So we're trying our best. We are a small group of people in engineering, and we're trying our best. The product is going to be fantastic, and I think that's the only place where you can run X402, because why would you actually want your coffee purchase to be known to the entire universe? Mm-hmm. So we built this basically perfect thing, and I think if people start using, they realize it's confidential, it protects your privacy. Mm-hmm. I mean, the perfect world will be that actually when people start using it, they start burning Scale. So mm-hmm. I think we're doing the best we can.
Okay. Love it. All right. Well, hopefully this vote gets launched soon. And again, it's really just, leveraging our partner to make, have their product work. That's the update. So, and then I'm writing on the forum very soon, getting people's thoughts on changing who can vote. Okay.
I like it. Guys,
everybody.
Happy Wednesday. Halfway through the week, only a couple more days to go. We hope you all have a fantastic rest of your week and weekend, and we will see you again next week for episode 16 of DECRYPTED. Goodbye. Ow.
Bye-bye.
Bye.